Hello everyone, I hope you are doing well. In the previous lecture, we discussed British fiction from James to Rushdie, part 1, and today we will discuss the second part or the remaining writers and the remaining part of the British fiction, which starts from James and ends at Rushdie. As we have discussed in the previous lecture as well, that neither modernism nor postmodernism has taken deep root in England. Instead, the moral, realistic tradition has been the main avenue through which English quality fiction has evolved over the last century. One interesting compartment in that tradition is the Catholic novel. So we can see the important compartment in that literature. That important compartment is that of Catholic novel, right? George Orwell said that there are no good Catholic novels, only good novels by Catholics. The Catholic novel incorporates a system of values that is often in conflict with the larger established system. The most important Catholic novelists are Graham Greene, whose period starts from 1904 and ends at 1991, and Evan Waugh. Here we have Graham Greene. Green's weaving of religious dilemma into his fiction is evident. For example, in The Heart of the Matter, published in the post-World War II era. This novel echoes uh, Conrad. It is set in the Dark Continent in Sierra Leone, a colonial possession during World War II. The hero of the novel is Scobie is a district commissioner whose responsibility is to uphold and administer uh, justice in the territory. You can note some similarity with the passage to India in this novel as well. Scobie is scrupulous and a Catholic. He is also unhappily married and falls in love with a young woman. Yes, his marriage is you can say, some sort of indissoluble, right? It cannot be dissolved because, of course, he is Catholic, so he believes in indissoluble marriages. His personal life becomes somewhat increasingly tangled and compromised. Scobie calculates that the only way to solve his problems is to kill himself and make it seem a natural death so that his insurance money will be paid. But suicide, he knows, is the one unforgivable sin in terms of his faith. He nonetheless kills himself, and the narrative leaves the reader profoundly unsettled. Let's move our attentions toward the next writer. The next writer is Evan Waugh. His period starts from 1903 and ends at 1966. Evan Waugh was probably a more devout Catholic than Greene, but he was also more of a satirist. As with Greene, Waugh's fictional universe is irredeemably fallen. It is hell. And Waugh's fiction asks us, how can one act honorably in this hellish fallen world? Of course, when you read the fiction work written by Waugh, you will see the questions like, how can one act honorably in this hellish fallen world? So this is the theme of Waugh's great post-war trilogy named The Sword of Honor. So this sort of honor, which it follows the career of an officer in World War II. So it incorporates the career of an officer who participated in the World War II. Ultimately, the hero who entered the fray with the idealism of a medieval knight in armor, like Edmund Spencer Red Cross, he realizes that all he can do is save a handful of refugees. And in the 20th century, there are no great causes, only personal acts that may perhaps make things better or may enable us to hold onto the little that is worthwhile, that has survived from the past. It is significant that one of War's bitter pre-war novels does mean the novels which he wrote before war. So one of his pre-war novels, named A Handful of Dust, it takes its title from T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland, and was modern England is as bleak, or as you can say murky, as that portrayed by Eliot in his poem. Bright said the great country house at the center of was Bright said Revisited. Bright said Revisited is one of was famous work, right? So Bright Head is, you can say, it is the great country house there at the center of was Bright said Revisited, and that that Bright Head is also a ruin at the end of that novel, occupied by Philistines who have no idea of the grand cultural idealism that went into the making of Brideshead. The light of the chapel, however, still burns at Brideshead, a faint glimmer of hope, or perhaps merely an ironic will of the wisp. So next in the list we have George Orwell. George Orwell is a different kind of wasteland, you can say, is depicted in George Orwell's futuristic dystopia in 1984, or you can say it is such a different kind of dystopia, uh, and you can say it is a jaundiced or a prejudiced depiction of 1948. Orwell, whose period starts from 1903 and ends at 1950. He was dying of TB, tuberculosis, when he wrote this novel. That is dystopia. He had seen the future, and it was more totalitarianism than Nazi Germany or the USSR. As it turns out, Orwell was wrong about the future, but he identified certain tyrannical features in the new technologies of oppression that seem to be genuinely prophetic. The future, as an interrogator tells the novel's hero, Winston Smith, is a boot stamping on a human face forever. An equally dark picture is painted by William Golding. William Golding period starts from 1911 and ends at 1993. He paints or he depicts the equally dark picture in his novel The Lord of the Flies. You can say William Golding depicts or paints the equally dark picture in the novel The Lord of the Flies, and that Lord of the Flies turns on its head, or you can say it turns upside down, or inverts, or you can say it completely changes R.M. Ballantyne's optimistic fable of 19th century colonialism, Coral Island. In Golding's novel, as in Ballantyne's original, a party of schoolboys find themselves on an island in the Indian Ocean, and in the few months, Golding's island has become heart of darkness all over again. And the children revert to savagery of the worst kind. And you see that there is the savagery of the worst kind presented or revealed in the novel The Lord of the Flies. And when the children have no restraint of rules, when there is no restraint of laws and rules and society, cultural and religious rules on over children, so they exhibit the worst kind of savagery in the novel. and and this same bleak tendency is found in Anthony Burgess' vision of a welfare state dominated by uh, youth gangs. A Clockwork Orange, in this novel, in the work of Clockwork Orange, we see that the same bleak tendency given by Anthony Burgess. Burgess, interestingly enough, is another Catholic, and in the English version of the novel, the young gangster Alex is redeemed and grows up to survive the destructive element of his youthful criminality. We see here the Catholic notion of progression from sin to virtue. Equally as dark but quirkier is J.G. Ballard's Crash, which came out in the early 1970s. It is a fable of automobile apocalypse and the human race crashing itself to extinction. So we can find the same quirky, as you can say, bleak thing in the work of Ballard as well, the work named Crash. Of course, there are other moves in 20th century fiction, including comic novels such as those of Kingsley Amis, and the many voices of fiction heard in female novelists, including Ivy Compton Burnett, Iris Murdoch, Daphne du Maurier, Maurier Spark, E.S. Byatt, and Margaret Drabble. So, we will conclude this lecture with perhaps the greatest living novelist, Salman Rushdie, right? Salman Rushdie was born in India and he was brought up in Pakistan, educated in England, and now lives largely in the US or the United States. He was born in 1947 and he is nomadic post-colonial literature incarnate. More importantly, he has made the novel matter in our time. So we have so many things against this writer because he committed blasphemy in his works, right? And we had given so many fatwas against this writer because, of course, he committed blasphemy. So that's why there is so many hate against this novelette. But the good thing about the novelist is that he has made the novel matter in our time. So he is considered as the best novelist of the late 20th century, of the late 25 of the last 25 years of the 20th century. Rushdie made his name in 1983 with Midnight's Children. So you can say he got fame for his work Midnight's Children which was produced in 1983. So the children of that title were all born at the exact moment in 1947 when India became independent. So this novel fantasizes a telepathic link that connects these children. It is a fable that evolves uh, into a complicated and highly satirical chronicle of India's post-colonial history. The genre in which Midnight's Children is written is called magic realism, right? So this is the genre which is used for his work Midnight's Children. So magic realism is the genre which is used for Midnight Children. It borrows from science fiction, but has a realistic surface, right? So it borrows a lot of things from science fiction, of course, but it has a realistic surface as well. But that mixture seems to work powerfully. In February 1989, the Ayatollah Khomeini of Iran, in the Islamic Revolutionary State of Iran, you can say, he issued a fatwa against Rushdie, who was born a Muslim but had lapsed and who became atheist in the later year of his life as well. So he issued a fatwa against Rushdie for the alleged blasphemies of his novel The Satanic Verses. People are of the view that he didn't commit blasphemy. He created different sort of fiction, but according to the Muslims, many Muslims, specifically Ayatollah Khomeini, who issued a fatwa against him, that he committed blasphemy, right? In his novel The Satanic Verses, you can study the novel, you can study the parts of the novel where he allegedly committed blasphemy. The crucial offense occurs late in the novel. Salman the Persian is taking down the text of what will become the Quran as it is being dictated by Muhammad the Prophet ﷺ, who has received it from Allah. For his own amusement, Salman starts making mischievous alterations to the holy text. Yes, he makes mischievous, you can say, alterations to the holy text. So that's why we say that he committed blasphemy. The Prophet does not notice, and Salman asks. So these are the words, these are the lines from his novel. The Prophet does not notice, and Salman asks, but, good heavens, if my poor words could not be distinguished from the revelation by God's own messenger, then what did that mean? What did that say about the quality of the divine poverty? Right? So these are the lines where we say that he committed blasphemy in his novel, The Satanic Verses. What it says, of course, is that the words are poetry, not revelation. So according to him, this word, the Quranic words, they are poetry, not revelation, right? So we can say the holy writ is actually the work of some uh, creative Salman of the same kind as will write a certain novel 1300 years later called the Satanic Verses. So whatever the case is, that there are so many things against this writer like blasphemy or etc. But he has made fiction matter. You can say that this is the great achievement that he attained, that he made fiction matter, right? So this is the achievement of also of some of other writers who came before him in the last century. So this is the end of the lecture. Thank you very much for listening and watching. If you have any question, please do ask on WhatsApp and Google Classroom. Thank you.